The Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Matthew, chapter 24, beginning at the 36th verse. About that day and hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing until the flood came up and swept them all away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then two will be in the field. One will be taken and one will be left. Two women will be grinding meal together. One will be taken and one will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. This is the gospel of the Lord. In the name of Christ, for whom we wait, and yet who is always with us. Amen. In Advent, we live in the presence of the risen Christ, but we also wait, somewhat impatiently, for the coming of the earthly Christ, God incarnate, God with us. We may find it difficult to take the time and the opportunity for the reflection for which Advent was surely designed, because of the very hectic time we're in just now. This is not simply because of our summer Advent and Christmas season, which coincide with the end of the school year and the beginning of the summer break, and also this year with election season. But I suspect that all this busyness actually accentuates the problem of losing out on reflection. And this is a pity. The thing about reflection, of course, is that it involves both looking back on the past and looking thoughtfully to the future. Reflection in Advent is different from the reflection we do as we prepare in Lent for the great celebration of Easter. What does our tradition teach about this time of reflection and anticipation? Advent has been observed since at least the 4th century, and although the starting date has varied quite a bit over the 1700 years, it has always been a season of reflection and anticipation. Notable traditions have been handed down to us to help us to observe Advent. Our Advent wreath, which is progressively lit across the 4 Sundays of Advent and on Christmas Eve. The use of purple, or in some places blue, vestments and church decoration to mark the change of season and to prompt us in our penitence and self-examination. And a certain austerity, no flowers, for instance, and no Gloria sung during the service. The presence of the Christmas tree may seem odd here, but it has a separate and meaningful place in Advent and reminds us of what it is that we are anticipating. It talks to us of life and birth and the abundance of God's goodness to us in the incarnation, which we wait. The important point is that the Church has given us in Advent a time for reflection and anticipation, leading up to the second most significant season of the Christian year, Christmas, in which we celebrate the staggering fact of God's incarnation, the almost incomprehensible coming of God into our humanity. The readings for this season reflect this twofold time of reflection and anticipation. This year, as we look forward to a year in Matthew's company, the first spoken words we hear come from Isaiah. Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, that God may teach us his paths, and that we may walk in God's paths. To my mind, walking is a metaphor for covering ground steadily and rhythmically, staying in touch with the world. No wonder it functions in Isaiah's words as a metaphor for discipleship. Advent keeps calling us back to our discipleship, drawing us to be attentive, first to God, and then to the way we live. So we begin with Isaiah, who asks his hearers to come to the Lord, to learn from and to walk with God. Then in our second reading, Paul exhorts the Roman Christians who were living vulnerably at the heart of the pagan empire to wake from sleep, lay aside the works of darkness and live honourably. Then in the Gospel reading, Jesus, speaking of cataclysmic and cosmic events when the Son of the Man shall come, speaks in domestic terms, working in the field, grinding grain, securing the house against the thief, all down to earth stuff. In all three readings, the cosmic and the ordinary belong together, sometimes in the same sentence. On the one hand, God is at work on the large scale, sending instruction out to Zion, judging the nations, arbitrating for many peoples, not just the people of Israel. The Son of Man is coming, and life as we know it will be swept away. On the other hand, we too are part of this story. It matters that we learn God's ways and walk in God's paths, that we live honourably, keeping awake, ready for the Lord's coming. Abandoning weapons of war and turning them into farm implements for food production is a vivid image. In war, as we are presently being so forcefully reminded, the destructive and appalling opposite is what happens. But under God's sway, nations would stop learning war and would live peacefully with each other. Sadly, I think our world has a long way to go. We are moved to reflect upon how this hope of a new creation in Kairos, in God's time, should affect our behaviour as people of God. Again, a clear connection is drawn between reflection on the state of our frail humanity and God's presence with us in that humanity, and God's justice and peace, which last year in Luke's account of Jesus' birth, the angels pronounced to the shepherds on the mountainside. And so, to Matthew's words in this passage from this last part of his gospel. Why the end of the gospel? Well, as Isaiah looked to a new creation for the people of Israel, Matthew looks to a new creation for the people of Christ. As one commentator puts it, we no longer await the baby's birth. We await his return to render judgment and set right all that is twisted and distorted. Celebrating Christmas means renewing the promise and standing ready to welcome the completion of God's work in salvation through Christ. Some years ago, at around this time of the year, I attended a conference of tertiary chaplains in Dunedin, New Zealand. On my last day in New Zealand, I managed to seize a couple of hours in Christchurch, and what I saw there served as a powerful Advent reminder for me. I saw the devastation of the city by the earthquake nearly 2 years earlier, the empty spaces where buildings once stood, the holes in the ground, the chaotic road system, which has only in the last few years been sorted out. Since seeing the aftermath of that earthquake, I've been very careful in my use of the word devastation, because its use in the context of events we often describe as devastating undervalues what the people of that city, twice in recent history, have suffered, and what the victims of the bushfires around our country, along with the victims of other truly devastating events, such as the recent and present floods to our north, have gone through. But in Christchurch in 2013, I saw the signs of hope and confidence. People who were determined that their city would once again be the confident, bustling, human place it was before the earthquake. One of the great symbols of this spirit is the cardboard cathedral. This building isn't just an adequate temporary home for the church while they settle upon the form of the new cathedral, what form it will take, and while they get it designed and built and work out how to pay for it. The cardboard cathedral is a stunningly beautiful statement of hope and determination to worship God worthily for as long as it takes. It is temporary, certainly, but it's not make do or make shift. It inspires the people of Christchurch to do as Isaiah tells them, to go up to the mountain of the Lord, that God may teach us and that they may walk in God's paths. They have suffered greatly since that year, but I saw there the seeds of a determination to go forward and restart their lives and their city's life. Restart is the description that they've given to every project which has been part of the building of the future infrastructure of the city, the future life of the city. And slowly but surely, restart projects have sprung to life in the midst of devastation. Even the horror of the attack on 2 mosques in March of 2019, there arose a determination to bring about a new beginning in Christchurch, and it is happening. The past 2 years have shaken our confidence somewhat, and the determination of the people of Christchurch is more difficult to engender today. This Advent Sunday, perhaps we can reflect on the appropriateness for all of us of anticipating new beginnings. Because I believe that reflecting on new beginnings gives a special depth to the Advent season. Difficult as it is to find time to reflect in the rush and tumble of this world's festive season. There is in Advent 2022, as in every Advent, an opportunity for both personal and corporate reflection on such questions as, how have we during this year lived the scripture we've heard today? What in our experiences during the past 2 years can help us to understand God's relationship with us and with the world? How will the coming of that tiny, humble and vulnerable child more than 2,000 years ago have meaning for us in a strangely real way again in 4 weeks' time? In short, how shall we respond to the challenge of Advent 2022? As I have in the 5 Advent seasons I've shared with you here at St George's, I commend this reflection to you in this Advent season. And may the Lord be with you.